Except where them hands, where them holes, where them throws, you know what I'm saying? Cecil.
I apologize for the lighting. I look like I'm like half a person right now in my face. But in Robert Kiyosaki's video, this is Rich Dad's Guide to Becoming Rich, his audiobook. In the interest of not getting a copyright strike, I'm just going to put a link to it below. There's one part of this book that I really, really liked, and it dovetails with the philosophy of how I teach. And that's basically the idea that in peacetime, you don't need to have a warrior's mindset. I know what you're thinking is martial arts. I should be trying to cultivate a warrior mindset in people. What I want to cultivate is a mental, spiritual warrior who's also not afraid to fight, but not someone who is just a literal physical warrior. I think a better way of saying it is you can't operate like you are in a war zone when you're not in a war zone. Now, I like to use my 2 o'clock in the morning analogy. Now, if somebody's coming out at you from the shadows at 2 o'clock in the morning, and there's complete darkness around, in my opinion, they get what they get, okay? That's probably a good time where you may want to just react without thinking, because if you feel hostile energy and you look and you see something coming towards your head in the darkness, you're going to have to move off the center line and get busy. And then if you find out later that they didn't mean you any harm, why are they rushing at you at 2 o'clock in the morning? That's a safe assumption that they're probably up to no good. Now, if this happens at a party, that's different. You understand what I'm saying? You're parking your car out front of your house, it's dark, and somebody comes rushing at you from the bushes, and they're screaming or they're looking at you like they want to hurt you. They probably want to hurt you. But if you're walking around, if you're at the office and somebody gets mad at you and they just shove you, and you kick them in the teeth, in my opinion, they get what they get. But in the law's opinion, you got some explaining to do. You got a lot of explaining to do, and you stand a good chance of going to jail. You have to have the appropriate amount of force and reaction. And to me, that's where classical martial arts training is the absolutely best thing for you, especially traditional classical Taekwondo. And you can temper that with some cross training in judo. Because a lot of us who took Taekwondo and karate back in the day, I don't know about Kung Fu because I didn't get into any Kung Fu back in the day. We were always taught that the first move in our forms was a defensive move. Then, you become more advanced. They tell you there's no blocks in karate and there's no blocks in Taekwondo. Everything is an offensive move. And I can understand that. But I also still, maybe because it was it wasn't the first thing, it was an early thing that I learned, that your first response is a defensive response. I can see you teaching that to a teenager because you're trying to get them to be less emotional and less violent. But it really does pay off, though, when you're talking about civilians. See, I have no illusions about whom I'm teaching. I'm a civilian. I'm teaching civilians. I believe I'm teaching you how to function in civilian society. And every once in a while, I tell my students, yes, I have a kind disposition. I am a nice person. I am a nice guy. But if this was wartime, and if I were training you for war, you best believe it would be a whole different vibe in here. Because I'm not about appropriateness in war. When it's time for war, it's time for war. I'm about to destroy the enemy because you're trying to survive. The bad thing about being a civilian is that sometimes you could be hit at with something and you won't truly know until after the fact whether that was combat or whether that was just a conflict or whether someone was just trying to communicate that you offended them, communicating with their fists through movement, through violence. Not that it necessarily required that you break something. Some people, I've seen people like they want to get physical, they want to fight, but they don't really want to fight. They want to throw a few punches or tussle around a little bit. They just want to get out their frustration. They don't really want to hurt you. And how do you know that's not the case? How do you know that is the case? You don't. You're going to have to figure it out on the fly. But I think that if you follow your techniques as built into your forms, and I say you temper that with cross training in judo, because most of us are going to see our forms, we're going to see them as blocking something, hitting something, blocking something, kicking something. It's not going to occur to us to throw. It's not going to occur to us to pin. It's not going to occur to us to joint lock. Even though all that stuff's there, the more you learn, the more you realize that stuff was there the whole time. You just didn't know how to use that movement that way. You were this instead of this. See the difference? This versus this. It's still the same motion, just a little bit different energy. I can step and do that and punch you and hurt you, or I can step and do this to lean you off balance, step behind you. Now I don't have to slide you to the ground. I can step my rear foot behind you, guide you over my hip, and just put you down. I can even do it fast and then stop right at the ground just to startle you and just to mentally throw you off balance and just to stop, put you down and get back if I have to. Or I can come in with this and pin you and hold you down until you calm down. I can be a peacemaker. That's why my student creed is, blessed be the Lord my strength, he teaches my hands to warm, my fingers to fight. Because a lot of times when people come into martial arts, most of them do need to learn how to fight. They need to learn how to be more aggressive. Because a lot of times people, especially when it's a parent putting their child in martial arts, it's, my child's being picked on, my child's being bullied, my child is too timid, my child this, my child. I'm going to let that ring because someone downstairs is going to get it. So that's where they're coming from. That's where they're coming from. I stopped the phone with my chi. No, I didn't. So that's where they're coming from. My teacher's creed, and yes, if it's just me teaching, I say the teacher's creed. The teacher's creed is, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Because once you get to that black belt level and you've gotten all these skills and abilities, now it's time to realize that there's more to the world than punching, kicking, throwing, and pinning. There's more to life than choking people out. You've got these skills now. Let's not just use them to fight and to compete. Yeah, you can use it for that. And there's not anything necessarily wrong with that. But let's also use them to be peacemakers, to diffuse the violence until we can all come back to reason. But sometimes if being a peacemaker means you have to break somebody's arm, then sometimes you're going to have to break somebody's arm. If you're really committed to being a peacemaker, you're going to have to go into areas of thought and of training and of intellectual exposure that your instructor can't cover, myself included. And fortunately, we got a big wide world of internet. If you ever look at some of the books that I recommend on this channel, if you check out some of the authors I recommended on this channel, even if you just go in these days, if you literally search managing violence, you can come up with a lot of stuff that will help you learn how to diffuse violence so that you don't have to just get into, no. You can talk. You can use reason. Perfect example, what if you're a school teacher, you're breaking up a fight at school? Don't you think that you could get hurt by one of those kids? Get the skill to come in there to protect yourself. You may have to put a kid on the ground. I didn't say slam. You may have to put this child down so they calm down and put the other child down so they calm down. You may have to hold them down on the ground until they calm down, or at least parry this one child's attacks, trap that child's attacks to get this child away from attacking someone else. Now, of course, if you do that, if you try to stop this child, this has happened when I've broken up fights with teenagers. I stopped this child. Oh, then this one over here wants to get bold. Then he wants to try to punch the other guy. So then I got to stop him. So this move, I got to do it like this because my arms aren't going to fit into the camera. So I got to use this move out of the form, not just as a strike, but to grab them by the center of their shirts and stand in walking stance. I had to use this move right here. I know you've seen it in a lot of forms. These double fist strikes. I'm using that to get them to keep them from hurting each other. And because I did it like I did it in the form and I've practiced it so much and I had like really good alignment, they could not get at each other until they calmed down. And they also couldn't hit me either because the angle I had them at until they calmed down. Then they stopped and they shook hands and went upon their way. So for civilians, ultimately, you need to be a peacemaker. These days, especially if you're a man, what if you're a man that's attacked by a woman? You're not allowed to knock her teeth out, even if she's coming at you with a glass bottle. You're going to have to defend. Maybe you get scratched on your arm or something, at worst. It's better than that, and she kills you. Because I'm not saying just lay over and let her cut your throat. But depending on who you are and depending on who she is, that's all I'm going to say about that. You react with what you think is reasonable, and the law may see something different. I don't mean to mock the law. I'm just telling the truth here. So we have to use these martial arts now to be peacemakers. These days, if people really just want to make war or kill you, they just grab a weapon. So that's why a good point these days of training and everything is for your health. And heck, it can be fun. It can be a nice hobby. You can use it as a segue into learning about different cultures, like the culture of the art that you study. And then you'll learn about neighboring cultures. It can be whatever you make it. All I'm saying is, let's just make it something that we can use to bring peace to the world. And I'm not saying peace as in I just lay down and let people rob, steal, and do whatever they want, to me or those I love. I just look at it like this. I can use this move as a double strike coming in. I can use this move to slam you out. I can use this move to grab you before I off balance you. I can use this move to get away from you. I can use this move to keep it so you have trouble seeing. I can also use this move to say, come here. Let's sit down and talk about it. I can use this move to pick you up and throw you. Or I can use this move as I'm getting ready to give you a hug. Thanks for watching this video. Like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this with people who like to talk about the martial arts. And peace.